Hey, it's Chuck. We are not bemoaning the noon kickoff. We are now owning it. It's a badge of honor. We're the lunatic fringe that defines our coach's legacy when it comes to this game. They don't get to define that outside the family. We're cut from a different cloth for Ohioans. He's got it all, man. He's even got the jaw. You know the jaw. You see that jaw and you're just like, yeah, man, that's a dude. Do I want Michigan to beat Oklahoma? No way in hell. I don't know what world I'm living in. This is insane to me. And if you saw my outburst, I apologize. It's showtime now. It is showtime, man. Welcome into Buckeye Huddle Prime Time. Appreciate you for joining us on a Thursday as we have moved our regularly scheduled program. Instead of Monday and Wednesday, we're now going to go Monday and Thursday in the offseason just because it really works well during the season. Ryan Day's press conference is on Tuesday. So Monday, you cover the weekend's games. Tuesday, go to the press conference. Wednesday, talk about what he said Tuesday and kind of wrap up last week's game, move in a little bit to next week's game in the second half of the show. But in the offseason, you stagger it out because you need that additional news cycle. You need the additional news cycle because there's not a lot that happens during the offseason, which is why I depend on you guys in the comments section to help us out, and appreciate you, Kevin. I'll certainly be hitting on that point today, no doubt about it. But it is so depressing this time of year if you are a college football creator like we are here at Buckeye Huddle, because you go from the busiest time of the year and then just boom, it drops off a cliff because everybody's just done with college football except for you guys, the diehards, for about till about spring, really, till spring football starts. Everybody's just doing something else. In fact, I'm even doing something else. I was watching and reading something different than college football for the first time in quite a while last night. But back on the college football tonight, back on the Buckeyes tonight. We got some things to talk about. I'd like to talk about some position groups. I'd like to talk about the schedule, some interesting tidbits on talent acquisition between the conferences that I was looking into that I'm going to share with you guys. And Joe Ressa is not happy with the offensive coordinator. I'm going to star that, and we will hit on that. And moving up, we got Go Canes. Canes got Mensa for Heisman. There we go. We got a Canes fan in the house. But we got to talk about Ohio State first, rounding out the final edition of their portal class as they finally did it. They brought in what was the final piece to the puzzle of a portal class that now includes every single position that you could possibly have, including all the specialists. You got the long snapper, you got the punter, you got the kicker as well. But they bring in their offensive lineman. And their offensive lineman, a guy that is not probably as good as Jordan Seaton, but he might be smarter. I don't know. He goes to Dartmouth. Oh, matter of fact, I've been saving some comments recently. I ran across this one that just absolutely had me bust a gut. Matt Hoffman says, Dartmouth is a toxically soft program. I don't need that infecting the culture. I have no idea what Dartmouth's football program is like, but I can tell you Vashawn Washington is his name, and probably not as good as Jordan Seaton. Did watch his film, and I got to say, I had also several comments saying something like this guy used to play tight end at some point. Now he's 6'5", 290, and people were excited, like maybe he could, be tackle eligible because he's got quick feet. And I watched his film, and I think the first thing that stood out to me is just how not quick his feet are compared to linemen in the Big Ten. But at any rate, he's not going to be a starter. I don't think he's going to be a two deep guy. I know exactly where he's going to be, I think, and I'm going to show it to you with the depth chart. But last year, the guy started 8 games. He's from Ohio. So a homecoming, just like happened with Phil Daniels coming back in the portal, though not quite the talent of Phil Daniels, but a versatile guy, a guy that graduated from Dartmouth in his 5th year. So he fits that old guy profile that we're looking for, as throughout the entire transfer portal, the Buckeyes really only bring in one guy in Dominic Kelly, who is a guy that's kind of like an extension of recruiting, a guy who just finished his freshman year at Georgia. Everybody else is either in their last or second to last year. And in a lot of cases, you got a couple 7th-year guys, you've got a 3 or 4 5th-year guys, and then you've got a pile of 4th-year guys. And Vashawn, another 5th-year guy. So not a guy who, ranked very highly, 1600th in the transfer portal. Transfer portal rankings are pretty trash to begin with because there's just not enough time for them to sell the product, so they don't invest a lot into it because the portal goes so fast. So they rely a lot on their earlier rankings. And he actually did have a ranking coming out of high school, though he only did have that one offer from Dartmouth. He was a 2-star recruit, which is odd. Like you rarely see a 2-star recruit, but he's a 2-star out of Springfield, Ohio. And I'm sitting here looking at this guy yesterday thinking, I just don't get it. We're talking about a guy who played as a junior at Dartmouth, like 4 or 5 games in the Ivy League. Then as a senior, he plays 8 games, and he plays 8 games at right tackle. He's 6'5", 290. It seems to me like this is a guy who could have gone and made money somewhere. We know how everybody's looking for an offensive lineman constantly. Has 1 year of eligibility left, and he chooses to come to Ohio State. Why? He knows he's not going to start at Ohio State. There's a decent chance he might not ever get on the field at Ohio State. So what is it that makes him interested in coming back? I reached out to him. I didn't hear back. I was hoping to get the story because I'd like to know his thought process. There's a decent chance this is a kid who just wants to be a Buckeye in his final year of college football. And if that's the case, I would love to know because I think that's awesome. But we'll get a chance to talk to him probably in the spring, coming up here pretty soon here when they do they do a day for each position down at the Woody. And we'll be down there, us kind gentlemen here at Buckeye Huddle. We do appreciate you guys tuning in. If you could, please like the video. And also, if you have not subscribed yet to Buckeye Huddle, it's a great day. Goodest day any today. We'd also love you to come check us out on the website. And if you'd like, you could even join the website and talk to us as we are on the huddle board all day. So, that'd be cool too. But Dartmouth, the competition wasn't great. And it certainly pops in his film that there's a lot of guys that, really don't belong on the field with him, as he is pretty decent sized dude, pretty good tackle. But it brings me to the conversation about the left tackle. And I want to say, like, the comments that I've gotten this week, and this is how you know that things have been really, really good with the portal class, with recruiting, is the comments I'm getting all about one thing. It's the one thing that's lacking. It's the one big time offensive lineman in the portal. That never came. And I think it's a great thing that there is only one thing that everybody can fixate on, because that means you hit a lot of boxes, man. You checked a lot of boxes if the people who want to be mad are mad about one thing. Now, offensive line, left tackle in particular, the biggest topic of the conversation, a lot of it because of Jordan Seaton, because there was no addition at left tackle. And when we talk about the culmination of talent that they brought in, when we talk about where Ohio State was coming out of the summer with the class, the recruiting class, and how they just did the portal, the Jordan Seaton topic. Last night, somebody sent me a message about Jordan Seaton and basically said Ohio State was one left tackle away from winning a national championship, which was really confusing to me. I watched that Miami game. Left tackle wasn't the issue. I think if you had Orlando Pace at left tackle, it doesn't change the result of that game. You got pressures and sacks from Luke Montgomery, from the right guard, whether two different guys played right guard, from right tackle. Left tackle was pretty damn solid, man. But when we talk about left tackle, when we talk about how much benefit is it for you to bring in a guy like Jordan Seaton at left tackle, in this particular case, I think it would be very beneficial because you got Austin Sareveld and you can move him and improve guard, right? Like on this, say last year's team, if you could have removed Tegra Shabola and put Austin at guard, now you've really improved at guard. But how much did you actually improve at tackle? The answer is, in college football, not that much. You didn't improve that much. From Austin Sareveld, that's true, to Jordan Seaton, you did not improve that much. I get that he's 6'7". I get that he is, a beast and he's going to go high in the first round. Austin Sareveld to be drafted as a guard. But how much of a difference did it make to your college football team? The answer is not much at all. In fact, Jordan Seaton gave up 2 sacks this year. Austin Sareveld gave up none. In the Big Ten, Jordan Seaton was in the Big 12. hurries and pressures, Seton gave up 12, Austin Cerebral gave up 15. And in the Big Ten, I mean, it's a wash. When we talk about what these guys are good at, Seton is an excellent pass blocker. They have a real hard time getting around him, and you can see why. He's huge, he's strong, he's got the length. Austin Cerebral an 80% pass blocking grade, and that squares up with what I've seen all year out of him. Seton an 84, so he's slightly better than that. How about this? Austin Cerebral an 84% run blocker, which we've always known how good of a run blocker Austin is. Jordan Seton a 52, guys. That's abysmal. That's horrid. That's really, really bad. But my point is, the reason we put such a premium on the left tackle position, specifically on the offensive line, is that the left tackle position, that's the blind side of your right-handed quarterback. If your left tackle is a guy who gives up 0 sacks on the season and less than 20 pressures and hurries combined, you don't really have much to go up. If he's a great run blocker and he doesn't allow pressure on your quarterback, you can't go up much higher. But let's just say hypothetically, there was a guy out there that was 10% better than Austin Cerebral. Let's just say hypothetically, because Austin Cerebral, truth be told, was one of the top 15 tackles in college football this year. But if there was a guy that was 10% better, how much money is it worth to gain that 10% at that position? There are some positions like quarterback where I would say 10% better is the difference between a national championship or not. An offensive lineman is 1 of 5 in a unit. So to me, at left tackle on your college football team, that 10%, sure, you want it, but for how much? Because when we talk about Jordan Seton, that dude, to bring him in, you are literally looking at, I mean, you got a budget in the transfer portal. You're literally looking at a guy who's getting, he got over $3 million. Terry Moore, Earl Little, Christian Alliegro, combined, that's 3 starters that you brought in on defense, did not get that much money. So wipe them out right off the rip, and then we'll have to choose a couple more to equal up to that money Seton would have gotten. And I understand, people are just going to say, well, go get the money, pay him, whatever. But that's not the way it works in the real world. We all know this. Now, should they have brought in somebody to compete, somebody who was good enough to maybe, okay, it's not a clear upgrade, but maybe it's somebody who's just going to keep getting better and can maybe supplant someone? That can be argued for sure. But to say you are one super expensive, overpriced left tackle away from a national championship, I just don't get it. But I'll make you a deal. If somebody can explain to me how that would have changed one singular game, if you would have flopped out Austin Cerebral for Jordan Seton, one single game, tell me the one game it would have changed, I'll be on board. Because that just doesn't equate on the scoreboard to me. I'm thinking through the games, and I just can't think of one. Can't think of one that makes a difference of the game. But I understand that 6'7" and the everything that he brings to the table looks really awesome. It just does not make that much of a difference on your college football team. It does on your NFL. You certainly don't want Austin Cerebral as your left tackle in the NFL. You're going to take Jordan Seton. But on a college team, it's just not there, man. It's not there. And when we talk about this offensive line, I get it. I get everybody's consternation about the way they played last year. I think that the addition of Art Smith is going to help a ton. I think that Art Smith understanding, we talk about Art, talk about the tight ends, talk about the 13 and 12 personnel. Like, he understands how to use it in a way that it was not used last year. For one, those tight ends were horrible at identifying what they needed to do. And essentially all they did was, instead of relying on your 5 offensive linemen to block those guys, the tight ends brought more guys closer to the ball. And now you had to rely on your 5 offensive linemen and then 2 or 3 tight ends to do their assignments. So now, instead of relying on 5, I'm relying on 7 or 8 to do their jobs. And 3 of them are tight ends who rarely do their flipping job outside of Will Kazmarek. It was a cluster show. And God forbid you put these guys polling, because they never could identify the right guy. It was just totally horrific. Art Smith makes that better. He makes that a lot better. He makes everything about the run game better. If you want to see a little bit further of that, I did a show on Juck on Bucks this morning. Art, in his own words, talking about like the tenets of his offense. And if you're someone who doesn't feel great about it, like our buddy Joe in the comments, I would say go watch that. You might feel better just listening to him in his own words talk about his offensive philosophy. But I do want to read you this comment I got this morning. My man here says, I'm skeptical. I hate to be negative about it, but the multitude of mental mistakes and technique issues screams coaching to me. He's talking about the offensive line here. And we have to have the same offensive line coach. We have the same offensive line coach with the same players. I thought we'd bring in a true tackle so we could stop trotting out a bunch of guards. I think I've already hit on that. But we didn't. And so a scheme that requires athletic offensive linemen, as you say, I did say that, doesn't sound promising to me. I'm not sure these guys showed a lot of athleticism last year or pulled all that effectively, seemed to step slow quite often. And as much praise as Bo had gotten, I think it's been a bit much. He's okay, not a difference maker, not yet at least. Doesn't make guys miss that well. Doesn't break tackles that well. Doesn't have amazing vision or ground-breaking speed. A lot of work to be done to get things where they need to be, especially with that schedule. Now, my man here makes a lot of points. When he talks about Bo, I just want to say that I've heard that a lot about Bo, really heard that a lot when Bo was supposedly asking for $1.5 million, which, he told me that wasn't the case, but that's what was out there. And people were irritated by that. They were, basically took that personally, like, how dare he ask me for $1.5 million? He wasn't asking you if he was asking, which he says he wasn't, but that's not the point. People got really mad at Bo and then kind of started knocking his game and how good he's not. Bo Jackson, when we talk about explosive runs per carry, was number one in the country. Number one in the country in explosive runs per carry. Number one. Number 3 overall in total number of explosive runs. As a freshman, so it's one or the other. It's either Bo or that offensive lineman that my man there doesn't think is too good or athletic. Now, I do agree with him. Yes, you're bringing back the same offensive line coach, and there was a coaching issue that was very apparent after the Wisconsin and Purdue games. We talked about it here on the show, and they never were able to get it fixed. Those guys have a really difficult time identifying, and identifying is coaching. That's not physical. That's coaching. So I totally agree with him there. Again, I think Art Smith makes a big difference here with that. I think the zone being now 75% of your run game, most likely, instead of 56% gap scheme last year with Tyler Bowen, that makes a lot of a difference. And I really disagree when we talk about the athleticism of those linemen. I think Luke Montgomery is a tremendous downfield blocker. When he gets out on his horse, he's a stud. And then when we look down the rest of the line, like, let's say Padilla is the one who earns that right guard role. I mean, that fits him perfectly. And if it's Ian Moore at right tackle, Ian is a slender, svelte athlete. Like, he's not I think Phil Daniels is actually a pretty damn good athlete for a guy his size, but we look at Ian and Phil, those are two drastically different body shapes. Ian is a longer, leaner dude, and he could certainly get out and haul. Really, Carson Hinsman certainly is a very mobile guy. So while I understand you could look at a group of offensive linemen and say those guys don't look too athletic, but we need to factor in, all right, we need to look at these guys versus another offensive line, not against the tight ends, right? And I do actually think it fits them fairly well. But anyway, let's take a look at the offensive line depth chart and where I think Deshaun Washington fits in here. As you've now got your load here of 16 dudes. You had 15. It felt a little short, to be honest. Now you got 16, and I like it a lot more. So if, for instance, Ian Moore and Austin Sareveld are the tackles, or it's Ian and Phil Daniels and you move Austin back inside, either way, we know that Ian's going to be a starter at tackle. Maybe left, maybe right, don't know. But let's just say the starting lineup looks like this. Doesn't matter. What matters here is what we've got out of the starters are 3 guys that can play tackle with Ian, Phil, and Austin. Now, your number 6 and your number 7 guy are Josh Padilla and Gabe Van Sickle. They cover center and guard. So if a center or guard comes out, you've got Padilla or Van Sickle to come in. What if one of your tackles comes out? What if one of your tackles gets injured? If one of your tackles gets injured, then you're going to take Phil Daniels and move him out to tackle, and in comes Padilla or Van Sickle. So really, your number 3 tackle is on the line already playing at guard. Vashawn Washington comes into play if you've got a problem further than that. So essentially, he is battling, in my eyes, for the number 4 tackle spot against Carter Lowe. Carter Lowe came in as a freshman last year in the class of 2025. A huge win, Justin Fry's biggest win of his career at Ohio State, out of Toledo Whitmer. Carter is massive. Carter is mature. And Carter last year needed to lose a little bit of baby weight and needed to gain a little bit of muscle. We'll see how much he's matured this year. Certainly a chance that he could beat Vashawn Washington out, but that's where I think he fits in the depth chart, is right there as you're fighting for your number 4 tackle. And that's great, because if you didn't have him, then you're talking Carter and true freshman Sam Greer, and that's no good. So pretty good spot to be. I got to add Deontay Armstrong in there as well. Notice where he's at on my depth chart. That's where I think he's at on the depth chart. And then in green are your freshmen. So that is your offensive line. You got 7 playable guys. After that, I think Jake Cook is one of your next playable guys. And I think Carter is obviously right there on the cusp with Vashawn Washington. And definitely, as much as people love Sam Greer, and I'm a big lover of Big Sam. Boy, that didn't sound I really like Big Sam. He's not gonna be ready as a freshman. No, not gonna be ready as a freshman. Speaking of Big Sam, my man Brayton Feaster out of Hoban, athlete, linebacker, has been playing running back for, he's been a star at Hoban since he was a freshman. This kid is 6'2". He is 240. He benches 225 like 34 times now, which would be number 1 on the Ohio State team right now. And he is in high school, and just a unit. So he moves to linebacker this year after playing running back, and lights it up, man. Lights it up. Today he got his offer. So he gets his offer from Ohio State. James Laurinaitis was up here in Akron today, and James and Hoban try to go 3 years in a row, or Ohio State tries to go 3 years in a row, getting a dude from Hoban after going Eli Lee, Sam Greer. Should have been Rock Hill as well, but it wasn't. So Eli Lee, Sam Greer, and now they're trying to go after Brayton Feaster, who's also got a younger brother, Bryden Feaster, who might even be a bigger time prospect. He's a little bit longer, maybe a little bit of a smoother athlete. Both brothers are like state qualifying and state champion wrestlers. I think that they've both got state championships in there, but they haven't won them all since they've been at school. Just total dudes, man. Total dudes. And you'd certainly want them both. I would certainly love to get them both. But that could be 4 years at Hoban. And opening up that pipeline, starting with Eli Lee, was a fantastic move. And it's a fantastic move by an organization who has consistently been making fantastic moves, which is where we head next, talking about Ryan Day and Mark Pantoni. Ryan Day and Mark Pantoni, in my opinion, deserve an unbelievable amount of praise right now. There was a lot of fear that the recruiting class and the portal class, when it rolled around, would be a bit of a clunker because of money. You had the house settlement. You had Ross Bjork really getting behind the house settlement. And you had fans kind of on edge when it looked like money was not being spent. A lot of high-profile misses early on in that class. Summertime official visit season, they were coming fast and furious. Carter Meadows, Braylon Womack, Felix Ojo, KJ Ford. I had a guy in my comments yesterday still furious about Luke Wafel, furious about it, as if Ohio State is entitled to the number 1 player. Like, if you don't get the number 1 player, all right, you didn't get the number 1 player. It's not like, you had him and you let him go. I mean, it's difficult to get the number 1 player as well. But as far as the offer with Wafel, Ohio State went way outside their comfort zone to flip him from USC the night before he made his decision, and USC flipped him back. And USC made it clear with that flip back offer that they were not going to lose. They weren't going to lose. And again, I'll say, similar to the Jordan Seaton conversation, when we look at Kari Wilder, if you think that Luke Fickell is 5 or 10% better than Kari Wilder, which is where I would put it max, if not pick Kari first. But if you think, and this guy clearly does, that Luke is better than him, how much better? 5-10%. Well, is it worth 100% more cost? Or are you better off grabbing Kari Wilder and Sincere Johnson for the cost of one Luke Waffle? I'll take the 2 5-stars instead of the 1 5-star. That's just me. That's the way I'd go. The question is, as Ohio State finishes this recruiting class, currently 5 5-stars via rivals. We'll wait for the 247 final grades, and they're coming in any day now. But 5 5-stars, Chris Henry Jr., Kari Wilder, Jaquaden Guilford, Sincere Johnson, and Jay Timmons out of Pittsburgh. Interesting when we look at the geography of these guys. Chris Henry Jr., we'll still count him as in Ohio. Sincere Johnson in Ohio. Jay Timmons, Pennsylvania. Jaquaden Guilford, Indiana. Kari Wilder, California. So the only guy outside the footprint is Kari. Pretty interesting stuff there. Or if you want to count Chris outside of Ohio, it's California as well. Then you got 2 California, and then an Indiana, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. But to have 3 5-stars, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, for the Buckeyes to tap in, that's pretty nice. That's a pretty nice one. But Ohio State was able to get these guys without dropping the $1 million contracts, plus, like we saw with guys like Carter Meadows from Michigan, Luke Wafel from USC, Braylon Womack from Auburn, ends up at Mississippi State, Felix Ojo, Texas Tech. You remember that one? They were able to do this, only spending big money on one guy, Chris Henry Jr., because there was no hiding who Chris Henry Jr. was for the entire time. He committed when he was young. They did what they had to do to hold on to him as offers kept rolling in, trying to pull him away. How did they do that, man? How are you able to get 5 5-stars and avoid those bidding wars? How are you able to do that? The answer is Day and Pantoni's crew beat the market to the evaluations. They beat them. They invested heavily in scouting and evaluating and understood that this was the way moving forward. This was how you get the benefit on the underprepared. And they did it. They absolutely scoured, and guys like Jaquaden Guilford, who ultimately finishes a 5-star, Kari ultimately finishes a 5-star. Kari was a top 300 player. Jaquaden Guilford was a top 450 player. Certainly guys that are on the radar of a lot of schools and guys that are in demand, but not a 5-star. Not that kind of money getting floated to them. Not guys in the $1 million feeding frenzy range like we see when a guy gets that ranking early on. But Ohio State knew what they had. Keep in mind, Matt Patricia, Larry Johnson went out, saw Kari Wilder with their own eyes, and they were stunned. They were absolutely stunned, particularly when he lined up at tight end and was running down the field, mossing dudes 30 yards down the field. They said, that's it, man. It's over. The kid's perfect. We got to get him. And the way they went about it was just unbelievable. We're talking about a guy who I think is going to be the best young defensive lineman at Ohio State since the Bozes and Chase Young. I think he's that different. I think that his performance at Ohio State will exceed that of Zach Harrison, Jack, JT. I think he's all that. And he's got a big chip on his shoulder as well, which I absolutely love. And it's also what helped Ohio State get him. But what they did to get him was excellent, because the following week after they went out and visited him, that was the day they offered. They get him to Columbus a week later, day 7. And on day 8, he commits. From the time they visited him to the time he committed was 8 days. And the reason they came so hard is because he was visiting Notre Dame the following weekend. And they wanted to make sure that Notre Dame visit never happened. So they get him in, they made him fall in love, and they came at him with their best offer. We want you. This is it for us. We're not going to flirt with 3 or 4 more guys. This is our other target. It's you. And they locked him in. And as things went on And Kari then becomes a 5-star, and schools start coming after Kari with big numbers. Kari, with a chip on his shoulder, said, piss off, man. These guys believed in me. It was a daft move, man. Not deft. It was a deft move. I got corrected on that the other day. They killed it, though. Seriously, like, that is so smooth. I mean, I think they just absolutely knocked it out of the park there. But then you got Brian Hartline, who did the same thing with Jaquaden Guilford, and this is nothing new of Hart, but he knew what he had in Jaquaden Guilford. And the only ones that knew the first time around was Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. Remember, Jaquaden was going to announce for Ole Miss. Hartline talked him into delaying his decision, makes his decision the second time around. It's Ohio State. Then you find out Hart's leaving. Oh, by the way, Lane Kiffin's now at LSU, and here he comes. Now he's at the other wide receiver U, right? Now it's a much more attractive offer than at Ole Miss. And this time it was Ryan Day and Mark Pantoni who were able to hold him off. And now he's a 5-star. That's a number 2 wide receiver in the country. And if he was the number 2 wide receiver in the country 6 months prior, he's not at Ohio State. He's not at Ohio State because then the feeding frenzy comes, the money comes. And I guess my point here is, when we look at the Buckeyes, they were able to go identify these guys themselves. Why is it that other programs don't have that confidence? They don't have the confidence in themselves. There's the guy that gets identified. They come with money. Buckeyes were able to go do that on their own, which allows them to do what? It allows them to go flip Jay Timmons in the back end of the class because they've got extra money freed up because they didn't spend it. You're just consistently getting the most bang for your buck. You're spreading your money out more than anybody else. And it's just impressive as hell. It's impressive as hell the way they pulled this together. It's obviously impressive as hell the way they got Blaine Bradford out of Baton Rouge, which still to me is the most impressive one in this class. A kid from Catholic high school in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, whose brother is a freshman at LSU. And it wasn't a situation where in comes Oregon with 3 times the amount of money that LSU was going to pay him. You know, that's not how Ohio State rolls. They really, really just won that recruitment. Straight up. It's amazing. And when you see Blaine Bradford's eyes light up at Ohio State, it's awesome to see, man. Kid loves it. Then they beat Texas for Drake Quinn. Unbelievably underrated. Unbelievably. Jordan Thomas, one of their, top corners right off the rip. He's now a top 70 player overall. They were able to flip Legend Bay from Tennessee. He's a top 150 in the end. Kamari Bing is now a top 300 player. He was outside the top 1,000 when Matt Guerreri went and found him. Nick Latour, tight end out of Lebanon. He's now a top 300 player. He was outside the top 800 when they got on him. Braxton Rembert, come on, man. Dude had one offer from Wake Forest. He's now the 111th ranked player in the country. I mean, they just absolutely killed it. And for their efforts, with the updated rankings at Rivals, they have now taken over as the number 3 recruiting class in the country, which, if you wondered, is the best recruiting class Ohio State's had since 2021. And that's flipping unreal, man. That is unreal. As someone who talks about Ohio State every day, going back to the summer, like it was anger, seething mad, man. Seething mad. And I'll be honest, I was never that mad, not because I wasn't scared. There was a fear in me that thought that this year would be a big step back in recruiting because they were going to be real cautious with the money. And because of that cautiousness, it was going to be a one bad year. And then they were going to find out year number 2. All right, listen, we're not going to let this happen 2 years in a row. That was kind of my thought, but it never bothered me because I felt the evaluations were so damn good that the guys that they got were so much better than where the ranking was. Now, as it turns out, I was right, I think, but we won't know till they're playing on the field, of course, but I feel much better about it. But people were so mad, and I got the fear, man. I got the fear for sure. Because there was this fear that, all right, well, I guess Ohio State's just out of it. They're not going to try to recruit top tier guys anymore. They're just not going to do it because they cost too much. Turns out there's still a way to do it without spending, and I'm not saying this is an inexpensive roster. They spent a lot of money. They did. But the thing is, when you talk about a guy that's a top tier guy, there's always one bozo. There's always one who comes in and resets the market for that kid and ruins it. Like Luke Wafel in USC. When it was Texas and Penn State and Ohio State in on him, Ohio State was going to win. Then in comes USC. He goes out and visits one time and boom, he's done. He wants to go to USC. That's it. One visit. There's always one bozo. He comes in, resets the market. And it's like that. It was like that with Felix Ojo with Texas Tech. Here comes the bozo with the big wallet. It was like that with Jackson Cantwell and all of his suitors. I mean, it's always that one bozo. And it looked like, all right, Ohio State's just going to have to settle for not ever getting those caliber of guys then. That's what it looked like to a lot of people. They're able to. They just got to go about it a little bit different. And it's amazing that they're now going to end with the number 3 recruiting class. All right, so that's the recruiting class. Then these dudes roll into the portal in a year of massive change, in a change of philosophy. And I think that they just knocked it out of the park in the portal as well. It's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be more or better that you can get when we talk about the portal. And you can look at it and maybe poke a hole and say, I would have liked a lineman that would have competed for a starting spot. Maybe you could say, I would have liked a starting left tackle. Maybe you could say, I think that they should have got a superstar edge to pair with Kenyatta Jackson. And that's great. Those are all very expensive things to get. I guess the question is, let's say what you're looking at is the maximum amount of money that they had to spend. They spent it. It's about who are you subtracting to get what you want now. So who do you take away to get your superstar edge rusher or your left tackle? And these are two very expensive positions. So you're talking about multiple players. So who are you sacrificing to get them? Because that is the situation you're in when you are running a budget. Now, some people will say, I don't believe it. They could have just gone and got more money. Maybe they could have. We don't ever get to see that kind of stuff. However, instead of, and believe me, man, I'm a rough judge. I am a rough judge. I think I'm always a rough judge. I think I'm always pretty fair. I think I always bring the heat on the program when I don't think things are being done right. Like I really do. And I hate to sound like some defender, but let's be honest here. When you get a top 3 recruiting class and a top 4 transfer portal class, you've done a bang up flipping job, buddy. You've done a bang up job. And I don't know how coming about that and like pointing out the negative is really very fair, to be honest. I don't know how you can do that. Yes, there will always be a little nitpick here or there. Is there a glaring weakness? I don't think so, man. I think they covered all their bases fairly well. And you also got to factor in for those people who are saying like, you really needed an edge. You missed out on an edge. I think they very much believe that Zion Grady is going to be that edge that a lot of people think they needed to get. I think they believe that. I think they also believe in Epi. I think they also believe, like I believe, that Kari's going to come in and make an impact year one. I think they believe all that. And if you believe that, do you still think they need an edge? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But when we look at what they did get, got a lot of starters on defense, made it a hell of a lot better. John Walker's going to be a starter. James Smith, 50-50 with Edric or a starter. Not sure yet. Baby Huey will have a lot to say about it. We'll see. Had a really rough start to the season, lost his starting job, starts coming around towards the end, but we've still, we've not seen the consistency you need to see out of him. Not yet. He's had flashes, and that's great. You know who else had flashes here and there? A guy like CJ Hicks. He'd have flashes, and people tell me he was a great football player. It wasn't the flashes. It was the other 75% of the plays where he got his ass handed to him. Like, that's the problem with CJ Hicks. Eddie has been very inconsistent. He'll get blown off the line 4 yards one way, 4 yards the other. Nobody notices those plays. He's got to clean that up. Christian Alliegro. This guy's probably going to start. and he looks damn good. Quay Russaw, your Swiss Army knife, light Swiss Army knife. Kari Wilder is your heavy Swiss Army knife. Quay Russaw can play down, can play back. Kari Wilder can play all up and down the line. Terry Moore is absolutely going to start at safety. I should be pulling this up while I'm talking about it. Your safety room is wicked nasty. Wicked nasty. Look at this, dude. Terry Moore is an absolute dog. Earl Little Jr. is a upgrade from Zoe at nickel. Terry Moore is the absolute best you could have done losing Caleb Downs to keep from falling down too far. Best you could have done. Guy might be an All-American this year. And McLean is, I've just loved since he was a freshman. And I think this will be a real breakout campaign for him. And I think that Terry and McLean will each do some mix of what Caleb does. Now, Jalen got the smarts, learned a lot, can't do everything that Caleb has done because Jalen's a little light in the hips. He can't lay the wood like Caleb, but he can do a lot. Guys that got to play, have to play. And I've got Jay Timmons over here. I've got Jay over here. I think Jay is going to be the next superstar nickel. He's going to be like Jordan Hancock. I don't think he's going to be an outside corner. I think he's going to be a stud nickel. Man, the kid's played it. He's played safety. He's played corner. He's played everywhere. And he's just an absolute elite football player. And when you look at some of these elite football players that play nickel, they are difference makers. Earl Little Jr. walks out at the end of this year. Jay Timmons assumes the role, and man, we're off and running. And that's where I think he's going to be. And Blaine absolutely has to play this year. Got to. Cannot be any excuses. You got to get him out there, which is another big story of the year, right? Now this year, you roll into a year where you've got young guys that have to play. You got this new philosophy, right? Where I've got to be able to see you play a little bit in year one to know if you're a big money guy, and he's a big money guy, so I can trust you to pay you in year two that it's worth it. I've got to see more from you in year two to pay you year three to be a starter, or I got to turn the page from you in year three. That's what we saw with Bryce. That's what we saw with Scott, right? And it's the way it's going to be. So with that said, you've got to get your younger guys on the field. Got to. Now, last year, talked about this yesterday on the show, the average in college football, average possessions per game, 24.9. It's 25 possessions, 23.9. 20, here, hang on. I got it right here. 24.9. 24.9 possessions a game combined. Ohio State games average 19.3. So almost 5 full possessions a game. It's 2.5 offense, 2.5 defense. You can't do that. Okay, you can if you want to. It is not ideal to do that if one of your other goals is I've also got to play my young guys and see them out there. And people can say all they want. Well, you only need to see them at practice at Ohio State because they're going against the best players in the country. It's not the same. It's never the same as a game. It's just not. It's not the same. So they got to get out there and play. And now you also got the dilemma of, well, this year, man, you don't got much of a relief. It's not like you don't have the option to say, like last year, we could have said, just go blow somebody's doors off in the third quarter, please, and play the young guys. The starters will get off in the same amount of snaps. What's the difference? And somebody could say, well, the difference is your defense isn't as rested between series if you do that. Okay, fine. Last year's defense was getting off the field in 4 plays on average against those kind of teams. So what's it matter? They're playing 4 plays. They're 19. They can handle it. I promise. But you got a beefy schedule, baby. And I can't wait. I can't wait for this thing, man. Look at this thing. It's so awesome. I'm sure you guys have gone through and decided, all right, win-loss, win-loss. I'm sure you played the win-loss record. I did too. And I'll go through it with you. Obviously, Ball State is nice to have that warm-up before you go to Texas. You didn't have that warm-up last year. So you beat Ball State, then you go to Texas, a night game. And when we look back, like Ohio State, is in line to potentially beat these guys 3 years in a row, which is so cool. Unfortunately, based on that, it's just really tough to beat a team 3 times in a row. So just going with the odds, I'm going to say Ohio State loses that game. And we start off a really depressing 1-1, beat Kent State, and then start off Big Ten play with Illinois at home. Illinois will be more than a double-digit dog, and Ohio State will treat them as such, even though it's an improved team. This particular edition of the Illini, I don't think is going to be as good as last year or the year before. I think you're going to have a slight dip down, but the program itself looking better. They just had their best recruiting class that they've ever had. Not ever, in a very long time. And then there's the trip to Iowa. And Iowa has got Ohio State and Michigan like back-to-back, as do a couple of other teams as well. I can't remember if Iowa plays Michigan first or us first. But they got a lot on their plate. I think they play us first. Then they play Michigan second. So they got a lot. Or is it Michigan? I can't remember. It doesn't matter. Look, Ohio State's not losing at Iowa. It's not happening, okay? It's just not happening. Then Saturday, the 10th, come home to Maryland. Obviously, that's a win. And then you got the big stretch of 3 games, 3 stud teams, but you got a bye week in between there. So at Indiana, and I have a feeling that this Indiana team is going to take a little bit of a step back. I mean, I don't know how you have a playoff team, then you get even better, then you just stay there when you're losing a lot of guys. Not yet. They don't have the backbone of players coming through the ranks yet to be able to do that. So I think they take a slight step back, not a big step back, but a slight step back. And the Buckeyes go in there and beat them. And then they go out to the Coliseum to take on the Trojans. And at that point in the season, USC's schedule is an absolute bear. And I don't recall exactly what it is to share that with you right now. But when I looked at it yesterday, my thought was, if Ohio State loses at USC, and USC just had to run this gauntlet before that Ohio State game, I'll be very, very disappointed in Ryan Day. Now, then you come home to Oregon, and the last time Oregon was in Columbus, they beat us with Mario, left a rubber duck in the middle of the block O on the field. Ryan Day, I feel, was really, really pissed off about that one. And I just don't I think he's going to protect the home turf, and I think the Buckeyes win that one. A really tight game, and it could be an absolute epic game. It could be one we remember for years and years. But that one will go to the Buckeyes, as will Northwestern. Sorry, Chip, not happening. And if Ohio State goes to Nebraska and loses to Matt Rule in Nebraska, don't come home. Don't even bother coming home if you go lose to Nebraska. If you lose to a Matt Rule Nebraska team, don't come home. And then they go up for the game. And as unbelievable as this sounds, because like when I was just rolling through the teams before I saw the way this set up, you know, there was a lot of different ways it could set up where you could potentially have 4 absolute brutal games in a row. As it turns out, you don't even have 3 brutal games back to back to back. You do have 3, but there's a bye in there. There's only a couple of 2 sets games, 2 sets where, all right, these are 2 tough games in a row, 2 in a row, 2 in a row. We've had schedules where, man, there's only 3 tough games on the schedule and you play those 3 in 4 weeks. This year, you've got 6. Matter of fact, check this out. And the point is, I got Ohio State at 11-1, and I never would have thought, looking at that schedule before I saw the order that they were in, that I would have chosen 11-1. But the way it sets up is very manageable. Like, I feel if you and I were sitting down together and our goal was to make that as manageable as possible, using the 4 crappy teams, spreading them out as good as we could, I don't think we could have come up with it very much better than it's been laid out for us. You got more of the tougher teams in the back end, and that's good because you got a defense just learning at each other, right? So even that's fine with me. But when we look at Ohio State, and I put this out the other day before we had the order of the teams, before we knew the order that they were in. And I'm talking about this is Ohio State's toughest schedule in the history of the school, which is unequivocal. There's not even a doubt about it. It's not even close, because you couldn't have had a schedule this tough until expansion. And in the expansion era of the Big Ten, where you now have additional really great teams, we haven't had this many. There are 5 excellent teams in the Big Ten, really good to excellent, in Ohio State and Michigan and USC and Oregon and Indiana. Of those 5 teams, Ohio State is the only one that plays all other 4. And they play Texas and Nebraska and Iowa in Illinois. They play the entire top half of the Big Ten, the entire top half. Nobody else does that. There's never been a time where it's been this tough. It's undeniable. It is the hardest schedule we've ever experienced at Ohio State, ever. It's not even close. That's it. It's not up for debate. And then you add Texas. It's awesome. I love it. That's what I love. But it's not only the hardest schedule that we've ever had. When we look at it based on last year, things change from year to year. There is only one schedule in the entire country that plays 6 teams that were ranked last year, and that's the handsome guys in the top left-hand corner. If you're listening on podcast, that's the Block O, baby. Now, there are 6 teams that play 5 teams that were ranked last year. So, I mean, that's really rare. But the Buckeyes stand alone, literally in a block by themselves. Now, when we look through this, I like to pick out, all right, where's maybe the other competitors, national championship competitors, playoff competitors? Michigan right up there with another tough schedule. When we look down at 4 teams, you got Texas, LSU, Georgia. That's good. Ole Miss, Indiana. That's good. Teams that play 3 teams that were ranked last year. Oregon, somehow with another. Oregon's not had a really tough schedule since they've been in the Big Ten yet, which is starting to piss me off. And USC somehow, like, their schedule looks really difficult. So that surprised me when I saw that they only had 3 that were ranked last year. Then you drop down to the 2 in Penn State. Matt Campbell, in year number 1 out at Penn State, basically imported the entire, actually 22 kids from Iowa State. And I'm looking at this the other day thinking, man, that would be just hysterical if it was the entire starting roster. It's just, I'm just taking the starters, guys, and all 22 are like, all right, coach, I'm coming. Obviously that's not how it worked out, but it is funny that it's 22 guys on the nose. But that Penn State schedule is really, really easy. And there is a chance that he could potentially, I mean, I don't think it's too far-fetched that dude goes at minimum 9-3 this year. Could potentially make the playoffs. Like, I hate to even say it because it sounds ridiculous, but there's a chance. And then you got the teams with 1 team. And go figure, 3 of them were in the playoff hunt last year or in the playoffs. Georgia Tech, Miami, and Texas Tech. You've also got Clemson in there as another team that has just 1 team last year that was ranked. And then you got Louisville. So Lincoln and Jeff Brom got themselves a very workable schedule, as I'm sure that we will be keeping up on Link and seeing how he does. So interesting stuff, my friends. Let me pop in the comments section and see if you guys got anything that you have starred here that I am to get to. Kevin says, where are the people who are ready to fire everyone because the class started out looking like it was barely a top 10 class? Man, that was rough. Ooh, it was rough. Pettigrew says, not even top 10 in the Big Ten per on-3 portal. You're talking about the 29 class? No. So this is the transfer portal ranking. Ohio State is number 4. When you look at on-3 and you go to their portal rankings, that's not it's not a class ranking. It's their proprietary algorithm that puts in, all right, how many players did they lose, right? How many left in the portal? So for Ohio State, it'll be like a 32 players lost. How many did they bring in? They brought in 17. All right. What were the players rated when they came out of high school that left? How many 5 and 4 stars? You had Quincy Porter and Aaron Scott and Mylan Grimm. They were all 5 stars. And did you bring in that many 5 stars in the portal when they came out of high school? It's like none of this shit matters anymore. Sorry for my language. But the point is Ohio State ranks like 36th in that thing. But it says right up at the top, this is not a class rank, is my point. So they don't have it. You got to go to 24/7 to get the ranking of the transfer portal class. And it also has one where you can add the recruiting class and the portal class, and it ranks everybody up like that. And Ohio State is 3 and 4. They're number 3 in recruiting class ranks at Rivals, and number 4 in the transfer portal class, which is that's at 24/7. So it's pretty unbelievable, man. Pretty unbelievable. Pretty fantastic job. I'm proud of those guys. Geiger says, I don't buy new cars. I let someone else take the depreciation. I feel similarly about NIL. Let someone else take the hit on a poor chance on a high school phenom and get someone proven. When we are talking about certain positions, it is absolutely beneficial to go about it that way. There are other positions where there are just not enough of them in the portal to be able to take that kind of fully as your approach. But I get what you're saying. Jason says, I keep hearing Indiana is unstoppable. Everyone's back and killing the portal. Some say they should be ranked number 1. Yeah. Geiger says, in my humble opinion, Indiana will have one more great year, but the NIL will take a toll on the culture there. I don't look, there's the part of me that's like, man, I said this last year, so I don't want to say it again and feel foolish again. But yeah, I just don't see it. Why can't Caden Curry apply for an additional year like everyone else? He said if he could, he would. Lawyer up. It's true, Jason. I absolutely hate this Chambliss stuff, man. This literally goes back to this dude when he was a sophomore, didn't play because he wasn't ready to play. And he also had tonsillitis that year. Well, he had tonsillitis, and because he had tonsillitis, now they're trying to correlate and say, well, the reason he didn't play is because he had this chronic tonsillitis. No, he just didn't play and also had tonsillitis. So they're trying to game the system, and now they're potentially going to get an injunction, and it's going to work for him, and that just irks the crap out of me. So anyhow, I feel like I've been yelling a lot, guys. Apologize for that, but my voice is starting to hurt. So we're at 58 minutes, and I'm going to peel out. I do appreciate you so much. Thanks for joining me. For those of you who hung out with me in the comments section, I do appreciate you guys. You're always the best. Big show tonight, bigger than I thought it would be, so that's great. And remember, we'll be back next week, Monday and Thursday. We're going to stick with that for the rest of the off season. So Monday, Thursday, 8 p.m. It's a date with all of us, and I will see you then on next Monday. And we might do a live show for Chuck on Bucks sometime over the weekend, maybe a live weekend show. But if so, I'll put it out on Twitter. So, all right. I appreciate you guys. Have a fantastic night.